Hi, I'm making this video today to dive deep into the topic of what I have called the Diagnostic Round when working with 5-MeO DMT. Now, if you're familiar with my books, my lectures, my talks, my interviews, you've probably heard me using this phrase for many, many years. Maybe it's not new to you, but I wanted to make this video just to really explicitly get into this topic and also provide this for people who are new to this concept and don't know what this is, what this diagnostic is, how it works, why it works, or how to work with it. And I will preface all of this by saying that this comes from my professional advice and experience, and I can pretty much guarantee you that if you start to adopt the guidelines, structures, and methodologies that I'm going to be sharing with you here, this will be deeply transformative for either your work as a facilitator working with 5-MeO DMT or as a client who is looking to experience 5-MeO DMT. And that's not because this is just some different approach. This is not just some perspective, some opinion that you can either take or dismiss as you like. I'm going to be describing to you how this actually works. And there's no metaphysics involved, there's no spirituality involved, there's no complex psychological theories involved in any way, shape, or form. This is simply how it works. And if you can accept that and adopt that and apply it, you will find that this makes a tremendous difference in your experience. Now, before I dive into it, I will say if you are someone who likes to have something to read about a topic, and if you process information that way, and you're thinking, okay, it's great to have a video, but where can I read more about it? That's this book, Entheogenic Liberation, Unraveling the Enigma of Non-Duality with 5-MeO DMT Energetic Therapy. You can find this in paperback, ebook, audiobook. All right, let's go ahead and let's get into the topic of the diagnostic round with 5-MeO DMT. Now, if you have just a passing understanding or familiarity with this phrase of mine, you might think it's simply the matter of this idea of give someone a large dose of 5-MeO DMT, see how they react, and through that you can diagnose what might be going on with them in terms of how able are they to open up, surrender, relax, release, let go, and allow the experience, or what suppressed emotions or traumas or energies might come out of the person and emerge in their experience once we remove the conscious structures of the ego. And yeah, it pretty much is like that, but there's actually a lot more to it, and that's what I really want to get into in detail in this video, because it's not just a matter of give someone a large dose and see what happens. That's the heart of it. But again, there's a lot more. So I'm going to be giving you a lot of information in this video, and hopefully it'll have a nice linear flow to it, but I'm just sort of riffing here, so let's see how it goes. But first, let's start with the idea that in the 5-MeO DMT world, dose ranges of this very potent psychedelic molecule are generally divided into three categories of low doses, medium or moderate doses, and then the large dose, which is often called a full release dose. And here it's very important to understand that the large dose, or the full release dose, is categorically different than anything that comes before it. And this is really important for anybody working with 5-MeO DMT to understand. A lot of people who facilitate like to start clients with a small dose, then give them a medium dose, and then give them a large dose. And the working theory around that is that by starting low and slow, that people are able to, in a sense, acclimate themselves to the 5-MeO DMT experience, the energy that arises within it, and therefore holds the potential of maybe decreasing their anxiety around the large full release dose, and also perhaps enhance their ability to let go into the large full release dose. And many people who facilitate working with this model, low, medium, large, once you get to the large dose, you're now done. You've had your experience and you're done with your session with 5-MeO-DMT. Now, in my professional opinion, this is the exact opposite of how I would encourage anybody to work with this molecule. For me, the first large full release dose is the quote diagnostic round, and that is merely the beginning of your therapeutic and transformative work with 5-MeO-DMT. It is not the end of the work, it is the beginning of the work. And because that full release dose is so categorically different in terms of the phenomenology of the experience and the results that we get, that no amount of working at low or medium or moderate doses actually gives us any useful information about what's going to happen when somebody actually encounters a full release dose. And this is because at these lower and moderate dose levels, especially when it's brand new to someone, the likelihood that the full energetic structures of the human ego will dissolve in those experiences is almost zero. There's very, very little chance that anyone is actually going to have a quote ego death experience at a lower moderate dose range. And once we get up to the full release dose range, this is where we either have a full ego death experience and a release into the non-dual state of awareness where the sense of separation between subject and object, me and not me, completely dissolves into a state of unity. Or at that point, conscious structures of the ego go offline, and then unconscious structures of the ego come to the fore and get embodied and acted out. Or we also have the potential for deeply repressed energies, traumas, and emotions to start to process up and out of the individual because the conscious structures of the ego that have been holding that in, they have now been removed, and this is now being embodied and expressed. And this level of experience is so fundamentally different than anything at the moderate or low dose levels that pretty much everyone agrees. Those smaller doses gave them no working information about what the full dose experience is actually like, what it entails, and what it involves. Now, for people who are approaching 5-MeO-DMT and say, hey, I just want to have an experience with it, then, take a full release dose, have your experience, that's that. But for people who are actually looking to use this as a therapeutic modality and transform and become more conscious of the structures of their ego, become more conscious of their unconscious patterns, of their blocks, of their resistance, of encountering and releasing and processing their trauma, this really is the model that I would encourage you to adopt. And again, I will guarantee you this will make a fundamental difference. Okay, so first, just to repeat, when we're dealing with the diagnostic round, what we're talking about is your first full release, large dose experience with 5-MeO-DMT. Now, as I've said elsewhere many, many times, there is no guarantee that at a large dose level that anyone's going to have a full non-dual experience. And this is because the human ego is incredibly resilient. There are lots of layers to it, and not everyone is able to release all those layers of the ego and completely dissolve the ego and go into that full non-dual experience. And that's okay. That's not a requirement for having a diagnostic round. Because again, the idea is we want to see where this person actually is at, energetically speaking. Not where they think they're at, not where they want to be at, not where they are within the story or the narrative that they've been telling themselves or telling others, but by putting the ego into this ultimate energetic crisis where it might distinctly perceive and believe that it is dying and disintegrating and dissolving and going away forever. It's in that crisis moment where we actually learn, is this person able, willing, and ready to completely let go and dissolve and go into this experience? or where certain levels of resistance rise up within them and be embodied and acted out in order to prevent them from going into a full ego dissolution state. And again, once these governing functions of the ego are out of the way and offline, then there's the possibility for all kinds of repressed materials, energies, and emotions and traumas to then be embodied and released through the individual. And it's important to note that for a lot of people who go through this work with 5-MeO-DMT, they're often surprised by what emerges within their experience. In other words, at the conscious level, they didn't know that they had all these suppressed energies inside them. And as a diagnostic, for facilitators, what this allows for is the possibility that then by reading the experience at the energetic level, which I will here emphasize is open to direct observation, it is empirical. This is something that you can see, that you can test, that you can experiment with. There's no fluffy metaphysics going on here. This is all something that is open to observation and confirmation by anyone engaged in this practice. But once we get to observe what goes on, that opens the possibility for feedback, for coaching, and perhaps introducing some changes before someone goes for their next round of medicine, and helping them work through that process at a very direct level and direct methodology. And also understanding that a lot of this can be difficult to incorporate at first, so that if we keep reinforcing this energetic framework that I'm going to be sharing with you here, this becomes easier and easier for people to implement over time. And as they integrate more into this energetic structure and practice, they become more aware of how these energetic patterns are embodying and manifesting through them, and therefore empowers them to start to take agency and make conscious choice over how they are allowing themselves to either be run by unconscious patterns of the ego or actively and consciously choose to embody something different that is more open, that is more authentic, that is more free, and is more accurately reflective of their true energetic state and being at the interior level. So, to repeat again, the diagnostic round is actually where we start doing what I like to call non-dual energetic therapy with 5-MeO-DMT. It is not the end of the process. It is not, okay, you've worked your way up to a big dose, now you've had a big dose and you've had a big experience. Great, go on about your life. It's where we start. This is just the beginning, because now that is the diagnostic. And it also recognizes that at the surface level, pretty much anyone who's choosing to work with 5-MeO-DMT, they will probably tell you, I want to release, I want to let go, I want to have this powerful non-dual God experience that I've heard about, and it's my intention to do all of those things. And that's great. Of course, anybody who's going to be doing this, they need to give their consent, and they need to be agreeable to taking part in this experience and process. But the truth is, not everyone is going to have a full non-dual experience. Not everyone is going to have that divine grace or that God experience. There's a lot of other things that could go on. And by using these metrics and using these methodologies, we're able to give immediate and direct feedback to any potential client of, okay, I understand that you were hoping that you're going to release and let go into this experience, but here's ways that we're able to observe and identify that your ego is interfering with the process. And here are simple, easy to employ steps that you can take to help short circuit that process so that you can have a more open, authentic, and effective experience. Okay, so that's why the diagnostic round is important. And it also is why I recommend starting with that, not ending with a full release dose, starting with a full release dose, and then adjusting dosage and returning back into the experience. And again, if you're just looking to have a big experience, super easy. Any amount of 5-MeO-DMT will have a big experience. But this is how to really work with it. So now let's go ahead and let's back up a minute, and we're going to shift gears and not talk about 5-MeO-DMT, but let's start with the energetic structures of the ego and how they're embodied, processed, and expressed in the body, in the person who has an ego. Now, keep in mind that this is not critical in any way. This is merely observational and is a way of helping us to understand how the patterns of the ego are embodied, how they get interrupted, disrupted, released, and transformed. Now, the ego is my sense, my self-aware sense of myself being me in the context of everything that I perceive and interact with that is presumably not me. So there's me, not me, self, world, self, and other. And this is a normal part of being human. There's nothing wrong with that. There is absolutely nothing wrong with having an ego. This is a healthy part of human psychology and being. Now, because the ego is this interaction between self and other, me and not me, subject and object, most of the ways that the ego gets energetically embodied and expressed is through asymmetries in the body. There's nothing particularly complex about this, so I like to give just some very, very easy demonstrations. For example, if I, the subject, want to use the object of my pen, I'm going to reach with my left hand because I write left-handed. There's nothing very complex about that. If I'm going to write and take notes, like I say I'm having a conversation with somebody online and I want to take notes about it, I'm going to hold my pad of paper with my right hand, I'm going to take my left hand, I'm going to write some notes. And then I, the subject, am processing the information that I'm getting from this object over here and using this object to accomplish this particular goal. Super simple. Nothing problematic about that. Now, if I, the subject, want to have a drink of water, I'm going to reach over with my right hand because my water is over here to my right. Or if I, the subject, decide, hey, I want to play my guitar, I'm going to pick up my guitar, and then my left and right hands are going to be doing two different things simultaneously in order for me to produce music. So most of the ways that we engage in the world involve these embodied asymmetries. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing bad about that. That's just the way that we do, the way that we go about the world. It'd be really weird if I were like, oh, I'm going to pick up my pen with both hands and I'm going to write like this. I mean, that's just strange, right? Use my left hand. Or if I want to check in with my dog, I'm going to look over here to the right because that's where my dog is. I'm not going to look out the window because she's not out there. But if I want to look for birds, I'm going to look over there, or maybe I'll look out this window because the birds are outside, they're not inside. So also notice that with this, as my sensory organs are mostly up here, as I am engaging with the world, I tend to look around. I'll look over there, I'll look over there. I'll think about that thing over there, and I might make gestures like that, or no, I'm talking about that over there, right? So I'm always engaging in these asymmetrical embodiments as I engage and go about the world. And even some things that are mostly symmetrical, like say I'm driving my car, that can be very symmetrical, but if I want to turn left, gotta go like that. If I want to turn right, gotta go like that. So we're dominated by asymmetrical embodiments through the ego. Normal, natural. Now, also, the ego is not just embodied at the exterior level of how I'm interacting with others or how I'm interacting with objects in the world. But the ego, through our self-awareness, is also really busy categorizing things all the time. And we do this more at an internal level, where we think, I like this, but I don't like that. I want this, but I don't want that. I believe this, but I don't believe that. I think this is good, but I think that is bad. I think this is right, but I think this is wrong. So at this really basic interior level, we're always putting things onto sides. We're putting things into boxes. And we can even notice that in socio-political discourse, we're always emphasizing, are you left or right? Are you left wing or right wing? And then we also categorize things as, are you higher or lower? Are you in front of or behind? So the ways that we occupy mental space is also very asymmetric. We divide things. We put them over here or over here, and then because of our ego, our self-concept, we gravitate more towards one side of the divide than the other, so that we are engaging in these asymmetries. So, this is how the ego tends to be embodied and expressed. And then at perhaps even a more fundamental and deeper level, we can also say that the body also tends to exhibit our sense of relaxation and openness and receptivity, or our sense of protection, holding on, or withdrawal. So, for example, if I'm feeling really open and expressive, I'm probably going to, oh, it's great. My body language is showing I am open, I'm expressive. Or if I am terrified, I'm going to crouch down, I'm going to try and hide, I'm going to try and make myself smaller, I'm going to protect this vulnerable part of myself. Or if I don't like something, I might turn my back to it. Or if I'm feeling resistant to something, I might cross my arms in front of myself and say, no, I don't like that. I'm closing off to that. So we also have these very basic ways that we embody and exhibit our more fundamental state energetically. And then here, like on this video, you can see I'm very expressive. It's because I'm excited talking to you about this, right? I want to make big gestures. I want to communicate to you that I'm saying something really important. So the way that we're mobilizing and exhibiting our energy and our basic body posture and how we are gesturing and how we are either relaxed and open or closed, we can see all of that going on within the person. Again, there's nothing psychic about this. There's nothing particularly spiritual. There's no metaphysics involved. This is just basic human embodiment. This is just how the ego is embodied and functions in the human person. Nothing particularly esoteric or arcane or abstract about any of this. Should be all open to your direct observation and experience. Okay, now, here's where we go back to 5-MeO-DMT. Now, when someone fully relaxes, surrenders, and opens up on 5-MeO-DMT, and also allows all of the conscious and unconscious structures of the ego to dissolve, what universally happens, let's assume people are taking a hit. They take a hit, and then they lie back. You got the nice squeak of my chair. They lie back, and they open up like this. And some people, they just might lie there like that for a number of minutes. And then eventually, the ego starts to reform. And that's usually the point where people then, if they're like this, then maybe they'll do something like this. Maybe their head will relax. Or maybe they'll suddenly look up and kind of look around, or they might start talking because they're like, oh, this was amazing, right? They might start verbalizing. Or people then might feel like, oh, I just need to curl up into a ball and sob for a while as their ego returns because they're processing a lot of emotions from the experience. But the important thing is that in the non-dual absorption phase of the experience, all people universally, regardless of their background, their beliefs, where they come from, they exhibit open bilateral symmetry in their bodies, meaning they go into this open position. You can't really see my legs, but usually people go into some kind of star position, right, where their arms and legs are open. And then sometimes people are actually moving with the energy of the experience. So their arms and legs might be, you can see my belly, they might be moving around like this. Sometimes their legs go up in the air, make kind of these big circular motions and movements. And then at other times, as people are embodying this energy, they're not choosing to do this. This is just something that arises spontaneously, but they exhibit this rolling over motion. And lots of times it comes in close to the body. So people are doing things like this, and they might be undulating up and down their spine. And then you can go back to these big movements, open like that. But this is the way that the energy is embodied and expressed. And it's not open to conscious control. It's not something that people are intending to do. It's just what their bodies are doing, because once we take 5-MeO-DMT, we are introducing a tremendous amount of energy into the system. And that this often is embodied and expressed. But at the most basic level, when people open up all the way, they show this bilateral symmetry in their body. And this is because our bodies are bilaterally symmetrical, meaning the left and right sides mirror each other, right? My two hands are mirror images of each other. And if we draw a line straight down the middle, that the left and right sides of the body tend to fairly evenly mirror each other. Now, if we were a starfish or a sea urchin or something like that, we'd have a different kind of symmetry, but we're not. We are bipeds that have predominantly bilateral symmetry in the body. So when we open up, that's what it looks like. Now, remember, as I've already distinguished, the ego, that sense of self in context of me and not me, self and world, it is most often embodied through asymmetries in the body. Now, we can see this in 5-MeO. So let's say somebody takes a hit and they lie back and they want to open up, but suddenly there's something that they're afraid of and oh, no, they'll start to act it out in their body. So they might be in symmetry for just a few seconds, but then pretty quickly they break that symmetry. Or another thing that might happen is somebody lies back, and I'm sorry my chair is squeaking so much, can't help it. They might lie back and they're open, but then as they get scared and they're reacting like, oh, they start to close down, and you might see them even looking around. And the eyes are like, oh, what's that? Oh God, it's over there too. Oh, what's that? And if people are really feeling protective, they're going to curl up into a ball, or they're going to roll over onto their stomach so that they're protecting this more vulnerable aspect of their body and their physiology. And then somebody who has a lot of tumultuous energy that they need to express and release, they're going to usually thrash from side to side. They might roll around a lot. They might just start screaming and, oh, I'm ripping out my hair over here, and now I'm pounding over here and pounding over here. And so we see this be all demonstrated in the body. And if we just want to give somebody a big experience, it's like, okay, yeah, take a hit, do whatever you want. Like, good luck, I'll see you on the other end of it. But if we want to really maximize with the idea that the ego often gets in the way of allowing repressed and suppressed materials, emotions, traumas, and energies from releasing through the body, then the more we can get the ego out of the way, and the more we can, in a sense, put it in its place, even if it's still present, but not engage it, not indulge it, then the more possibility we have for repressed and suppressed materials to emerge out of the person and to be embodied and expressed, and that we also then increase the chances that someone might effectively dissolve all the conscious and unconscious structures of the ego, so that they might be more likely to move into a full non-dual state where there is no ego present, yet they're able to stay focused, present, and aware within the full non-dual experience to receive the benefits of that experience. So here is where we start to introduce clear energetic guidelines into both the facilitation and use of 5-MeO-DMT. So again, going off of this basic rule of thumb distinction, the ego is most often embodied through asymmetry, and the non-dual state of complete egoic dissolution and non-dual absorption tends to be embodied and expressed through bilateral symmetry. That means we want to prioritize bilateral symmetry in a session with 5-MeO. So here's the guidelines that I like to give. You should start your session in bilateral symmetry. And this is for the client. For you, the one having this experience, if and when you become aware that you are exhibiting any kind of asymmetrical embodiment or expression, bring yourself back into symmetry and rest there. And also, if you catch your ego doing something at any point during the experience, cease doing that, go back into symmetry and rest there. And that it's very important that you bring yourself back into symmetry for the conclusion of the session with the medicine so that you can rest in symmetry. So this, again, you can't really see my legs, but if we're sitting like this, I like to call this the neutral position. No crossed legs, no crossed arms, open body posture, open hands, not like this, because this is, oh shit, I'm holding on. This is, I'm scared. This is, I'm gripping something. But open posture, and it can be like this, it can be like this, it can be like this. But this is, in essence, this is the neutral position. Now, also what this means, so let's imagine someone's going to take a hit over here. What I like to recommend is that if you're going to sit, you can sit like this, you can sit like this, you can sit like this, but what you don't want to do is start like this, with legs crossed. What we want to do is put yourself in position so that you can just open up with the experience. Open up with that energy. And the more energized you are, the more your arms and legs are really more like conduits of energy. So we don't want to cross anything because that's actually crossing the energy, it's holding the energy, it's like constricting yourself. You want to be open so that you can just go all the way into the experience. And again, these guidelines are, because it's really hard for people to keep track of whether they are doing this or not doing this. This is why I always like to say, when you become aware. So, if you're a client and you become aware that, oh, I'm lying there and I'm all lopsided like this, or I'm doing something like this, when you become aware that you're in that position, rather than staying there, bring yourself back into the neutral position and then rest. Or if you become aware that I'm like babbling and I'm talking to the spirits over there and then the spirits over there, when you become aware that you're doing that, stop doing it and come back into the neutral position and just rest. Or a big transition for a lot of people is when the ego starts to reform after the peak. And at that point, especially when people are new to 5-MeO, it's really hard for them to keep themselves from immediately engaging in the ego. So in other words, they might have been lying there peacefully, but then suddenly they look up, they start talking to people, they want to express about what this experience was that they just went through. But the medicine is still going very strong at that point. So ideally, I invite people to catch yourself, notice, am I immediately engaging from the ego as soon as it starts to reappear? Or can I just lie back and then observe, oh, there's my ego coming back, and it's trying to get me to do something. Always keeping in mind that the ego is a perpetual doer. It wants to do stuff, it wants to get stuff done. Notice those urges, notice those tendencies, and then just relax in neutral symmetry. That you don't need to do anything. You don't need to engage the ego. You can just observe it as it's reforming and then start to become more aware of how the ego is functioning, what's going on there. Now, for people who facilitate, this again is where I advise facilitators to please share these instructions with your potential clients. Talk to them about why this is important, how it works, how it functions, and how by engaging these energetic structures and methodologies, we actually start to really maximize the experience. So for facilitators, this can mean, for one, talking with potential clients about, well, so if I see you close off and start to shut down and protect yourself during the experience, do I have permission as the facilitator to come up and gently roll out your arms so that you're back more in an open symmetrical position? Or if I observe you wildly looking around, do I have your permission to see if I can get your attention and get you to focus right here. So this importance of symmetry, it even applies to eyesight. So I like to use this rule of thumb. Only the ego looks around, because the ego is asking, what's over there? What's up there? What's down there? What's behind me? What's that? Right? That's the ego trying to identify subject-object relationship. But when we really absorb in the full non-dual experience in that infinite energy of 5-MeO, if we keep our eyesight centered, then we're not looking around, we're not engaging in subject-object relationship, and that's the opportunity then to just open up from this place and go all the way into that energy, go all the way into that state. And then, let's say the ego reemerges, and rather than look around, I stay focused here on my experience, and then I'm riding that energy all the way through the experience, through the dissolution of the ego, into the infinite non-dual opening, and then as the ego returns, I am staying focused and present. I'm not just, what are my facilitators doing? Oh, what are those people doing? Oh, hi, how are you doing? What's going on over there? But you're staying focused. So this takes discipline on the part of clients, and they have to learn how to do this. We have to really allow for, this takes learning, this takes skill, this takes practice. It's not going to come to everyone right away. But the more we start to center on this, then the more available we are to really energetically open within the experience. And now, in using it as a diagnostic round, what this means is that once we've gone through this process once, then the facilitator, the person serving the medicine, now has a very clear demonstration of how able is this person to just simply rest in symmetry and let go of the ego and surrender and relax and allow? Or where are their unconscious patterns manifesting? Where are there things that they're not in conscious control of that are now taking over and being demonstrated physically in the body by their body postures, by their movements, by their gestures, by their sounds, by the activities that they're engaging in? And then that opens up the possibility now for, I can give you direct feedback and discuss what are the next set of techniques or methods that we might want to use, and taking another dose of 5-MeO, and then using that feedback to help structure your experience so that you can make more effective progress. So this is not just the idea of, we want people to have a big experience, and then whatever comes of that is what comes of that. It's laying out, these are objective, empirical guidelines that we can engage in that give us incredibly meaningful and valuable information about this client, about what is genuinely going on with them energetically, and where we can introduce potential correctives and guidance to help them more fully maximize their experience so that they can move through it in a much more powerful way that ultimately is going to allow them to not only go deeper, but become more aware of how these patterns are mostly manifested and expressed unconsciously. And so as we become conscious of them, then we can more effectively develop our agency around deciding whether we want to engage them or not. So for me, this is the heart of whether we are using this as a therapeutic model, or if we are just saying, hey, we're going to go for whatever and then see what happens, and your experience is your experience, which I don't think is particularly helpful or useful. That there is a way to use 5-MeO in this direct non-dual therapy that really allows people to move through deep levels of resistance, deep levels of suppressed energies and materials, and helps format it in such a way that it can ultimately be integrated and embodied later in a way that is much more direct and healthy than if we're just like, hey, whatever happens, happens, and like that's the experience. So it's this idea of using the diagnostic round to provide the best possible feedback for the person to maximize the potential of this medicine. A few more things. For people who facilitate, because of this model of I am symmetrical, I am focused, I am open, I am processing, and now I'm coming back into my ego. This is why I have always said that if you're facilitating, it's actually really important for you to be directly in front of the person, not off to the side. Most people who facilitate will go off to the side. But what does that do? If I'm having my experience and my facilitator is off to the side, that reinforces an asymmetrical energetic relationship that tends to perpetuate the presence and function of the ego. Versus if somebody is right in front of me, that becomes more like a mirror reflection, where then I can release more easily. And then if I want to reach out or make contact with my facilitator, I will have to still be in alignment with the energy, and then, oh, you're right here in front of me. Versus I'm reaching out to someone who is at my side. And this makes a fundamental difference for people going through their experience. If the facilitator is in front of them or perhaps behind them, there is that sense of we are in alignment with the energy of this experience, versus if somebody is off to the side, that will fundamentally feel out of alignment and in reinforcing of the ego. It just works this way. Also, this is a very good reason for why it can be very useful to allow people to video record their sessions with 5-MeO, because they're going to go through a lot that at the full release dose level they are not going to be aware of at the time, and there's going to be all kinds of energetic demonstrations and embodiments that are being processed somatically that they don't know is happening, that they're not aware of, and they won't have an immediate sense of whether it was through bilateral symmetry or whether it was through some kind of asymmetry. But if we video record it with these instructions and guidelines that are made clear to those clients, they can then go back and watch their video, and they can start to do some of their own assessment of, oh, look at how I broke symmetry there. Look at how I was thrashing about there. Look at how I was reaching out to the left or the right during these other moments. Look at how I closed down. Look at how I opened up. And that it gives them the tools and the empowerment to start energetically reading themselves and go beyond the story of, well, of course I want to surrender, let go, open up, relax, and allow. But actually being able to look back and see, oh, I can see how I was fighting with it. I can see how I was indulging in this area. I can see how I was trying to close off. I can see how I was afraid. And that I can see how when my ego came back, I immediately started acting on these programs of the ego or something like that. So again, is this general rule of thumb, the more time someone can spend in relaxed, open symmetry, the less likely their ego is going to be creating any kind of interference at either the conscious or unconscious levels. The more someone is engaged in any kind of asymmetric embodiment, expression, or gestures, including looking around with eyesight, the far more likely it is that their ego is doing something rather than getting out of the way and allowing these energies to process at a more direct and authentic level. This is the value of the diagnostic round, of starting there, giving feedback and coaching and conversation for how can we help you, the client, move even deeper into this experience, have it be more therapeutic, more transformative, and then again, that allows for an easier integration time period afterwards, because rather than just treating the medicine as, hey, it's going to be big and we don't know what we're going to get, we're actually working from an energetic structure and methodology that says, this is how you make progress. This is how you integrate it. This is how you work with it. And these are the things that you want to pay attention to afterwards as you're going through reactivations or whatever else that you're experiencing, ongoing emotional or energetic processing, by resting in symmetry. Going into the neutral position, we allow these habitual structures of the ego to release, reset, and not just be operated on at an unconscious level that really functions more of like an energetic prison. So this is how it works. So please notice, in discussing all of this with you, the audience, I have not encouraged any kind of prayer, any kind of ceremony. I have not discussed any form of spirituality. There have been no religion. There's no metaphysics. There's no discussion of esoteric concepts of energy or souls or spirits or anything like that. This is the direct energetic approach to working with this extraordinarily powerful energetic molecule, 5-MeO-DMT, that has the potential to dissolve all the energetic structures of the ego, give access to full non-dual states of awareness, and deep, deep, deep somatic, therapeutic, energetic processing in the body. But it works way more effectively if we're following these basic energetic guidelines and structures. Then, once we have that diagnostic round, we now have demonstrable evidence of how this person is either able to maintain symmetry and relax and surrender and release, or not. And then we have immediate areas of feedback that are all embodied. There's nothing abstract about it. How it's all being embodied and processed right here, right now, and how best to give advice for how to go deeper, how to go further, how to be more open, how to be more in a state of trust, more in a state of authenticity. It's actually really, really simple. This is hard to implement because the energies are massive. These patterns of the ego are deeply entrenched. This takes work, it takes attention, it takes perseverance. But I'll tell you, I've been talking about this for years. And there's a lot of people in the 5-MeO world who are like, oh, that's just Martin's opinion. And it's your loss. If that's you, it's your loss because you're missing out on something that's really basic and really simple, and you can totally confirm this for yourself. Then there are others who said, look, my facilitator didn't emphasize any of this, but Martin, I've read your work, I've listened to your talks, I implemented it myself, and by God, it made the biggest difference. And so that's ultimately what it comes down to, is like, if you implement this yourself, I guarantee you will find this is profound. This is basic, this is fundamental, this is universal, this is not an opinion, this is not just one way of doing things versus other ways. No, this is it. I guarantee it. This is it. Super simple. See if you can do it. See if you can ride through the experience with symmetry. Keep bringing yourself back into symmetry. Notice if you are open or if you're closed. Notice if your ego is running off of unconscious patterns, or if you are just present in the present moment without projections, without attachments. This will make the difference for you. And will also help reorient you around just having big experiences versus, am I actually making progress? And can I measure it? Can I observe it? Can I see how I'm making progress and becoming more liberated, more authentic, more present, more fully in myself, of myself, right here in this body, right now. Again, if you want to read more about it, Entheogenic Liberation, Unraveling the Enigma of Non-Duality with 5-MeO-DMT Energetic Therapy. If you want to learn more about me, please stop by my personal webpage, martinball.net. You can find lots of my materials here on the Entheogenic Evolution channel on YouTube. You can listen to my podcast, The Entheogenic Evolution. And if you want help integrating and unpacking your experience from this non-dual and energetic perspective that I've just described here, reach out to me, martinwball@gmail.com. I'm available for 30, 60, and 90-minute integration calls on Zoom to help you be more fully you. Thanks for watching. Bye.